We're wasting precious time. Come on to the theater.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Boyos Discuss, the podcast where we pick a topic and then shoot the shit about it for a while. This week we're continuing Boyos Summer Musicals with our review of Xanadu. I'm Matthew, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Ben and Other Ben. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yo. So, sort of, before we get things started, what's y'all's history with this movie, or just the musical? Because eventually it did get a Broadway adaptation, like, decades later, but...
I have Xanadu by, Electrolight Orchestra on my phone, and I don't remember when I added it. I tried to watch a video that was like, look at these wacky musicals, and would lampoon them, and I only got halfway through, because I was so lost about what was happening in a goof summary.
That's literally the same as me, where like I like Electric Light Orchestra, so I just heard these songs by Transitive Property and I was like, hey, that Xanadu song's pretty spiffy. And then I saw like American Dad and fucking like Family Guy and other shows just make fun of roller disco. Yeah. And I'm like, that's funny. Don't know why. And that's my history with it.
So for me, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie. Like, I feel like everyone has those few movies on VHS. You don't know why your family owns them, but you do, and you watch them, like, over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Like, that was me with Arthur's Perfect Christmas.
So, like, yeah, similar energy to, like, that, where it's like, I don't know why, because my mom, she saw this movie when it came out in theaters, and, like, they hyped the shit out of it. They were like, oh, Olivia Newton-John, it's a musical, like, it's gonna be as good as Grease. And then she saw it and she was like, oh god, that was fucking terrible.
Grease was 78?
78, 77.
Okay, so this is just a few years after?
A few years after, okay. Yeah. So that's my sort of history with it. I have so many memories of it growing up, and I used to not really like it as a kid, but just through nostalgia, I sort of, like, have a fondness for it now, I guess. But yeah, that's my history with it. So before we get into the synopsis, I figured we'd do a little bit of background on some facts about the movie. Came out in 1980, like we were saying. It was directed by Robert Greenwald, who's primarily a documentary filmmaker, so it's sort of an interesting, I guess, like, oh yeah, let's have him do a big budget musical.
Yeah, the opposite.
Yeah,
that's weird.
I might explain it, because there's some people that they do not pull performances out of, so that might be him not having experience actually with actors.
Yeah, that would make sense for sure. But it initially had been pitched as like a small scale sort of roller disco movie. Only had about a budget of $4 million to begin with. Things sort of ballooned though when Olivia Newton-John and Gene Kelly got tied to it. It ended up going to about $20 million for its budget. Okay. And this bet really didn't pay off since it only made about $23 million at the box office. So typical rule of thumb is that it has to do like twice its budget and marketing costs, I guess, as well, for it to break even. So it definitely didn't do that. Some other sort of interesting casting sort of things. The role of Sonny Malone, some of the actors who were considered for it were John Travolta, who I think was doing American Cowboy, or whatever the one was where he's like a cowboy in New York or something. I mean, yeah. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. But it was him, Peter Frampton, which, like, that would have been interesting because then maybe Sonny would have been singing, and that would have made more sense for a musical. Yeah. Whereas, like, really the only person who's singing in this is Kira, but we'll sort of get to that later. Mel Gibson was another possibility. It was pretty early on in his career, so that would have been interesting. And then Michael Biehn from the Terminator movie was also considered for that. Is he
fucking Kyle, like, guy who comes back to
Kyle Reese. Yeah.
Okay.
But they ended up casting Michael Beck.
The worst one. What the fuck, man? I've heard of all these people.
So, like, a lot of them were busy with other things, or, you know, just other stuff sort of came up. But Michael Beck primarily is known for being in the movie The Warriors.
Yeah, and he's, like, that movie is amazing. It's one of my top 10 favorite movies. So seeing this, I was very confused how it was the same actor.
He's got quite a nose.
But after this, I was sort of looking at Michael Beck's filmography, and it really sort of paints a picture that, like, after this, he did a lot of, like, television stuff, but he never really had any other big movie roles. And it's like, that's sort of unfortunate, because, I mean, I haven't seen The Warriors, but Other Ben has talked about it, said lots of good things about it. So it's just like, it's disappointing that he sort of just fell off after.
Man, if you had John Travolta in this, it would literally, like, everybody who went to go see Grease would be like, oh my god, it's Grease again, and then
But then if it was shit anyways,
well, yeah, but
it's
you'd
like,
still have John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. So it's like, you know, I feel like the turnout would have been big.
But sort of circling back to last week's review of Newsies, we sort of talked about how the director of that movie was involved in a movie we'd be talking about this week. He was the choreographer, or at least one of the choreographers on this movie, so sort of was one of his early, like, film roles, and his career, you know, would sort of get bigger as the years progressed.
The choreography was impressive.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, I think, like, we'll sort of talk about this at the end, like, a lot of the critics at the time said the dancing was all really good, it just wasn't shot well. Like, they sort of shoot things at, like, eye level, which doesn't really work for,
I agree,
like, a movie musical, but, with that all out of the way, we're going to jump into the synopsis. I'm going to be doing that this week, just because of my nostalgia goggles. Tinting this whole thing, but we open the movie on an old man who's playing clarinet at the beach. It's sort of a somber song.
We open it with, like, the Universal globe.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to necessarily go, like, weird, like, it's shoot, what is it?
It starts with, like, a prop plane, and then it goes around the globe, and it's a Concorde, because, wow, it's the 70s,
and then
80s.
it's a UFO. And it, like, is goofy and weird, and, like, they're doing the cast lit, like, they're putting the billing up.
Yeah.
Like, while the Universal logo is being played with. And it's like, okay, it sets the tone for the movie very early, and I appreciate that it's like, immediately you're just like, oh, this is going to be retarded. This is going to be a really dumb movie. Like, I appreciate that.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But from there, we go to an old man playing clarinet at the beach. We'll go more into detail on him later. He'll come up. But we have the first of many weird transitions that look like Windows Movie Maker, like stock, sort of like
shutters.
Yeah, like shutters opening and closing for all of the scene transitions.
But like the really cheap shutters that come in like garbage apartments where they like break if you like spit on them. Like imagine opening and closing those shutters.
Yeah.
That's what the transitions look like.
So we transition over to Sonny Malone, our main character. He's a painter who's struggling to find his inspiration. You know, he's trying, for some reason, he's painting like 4 different things at once, like on different canvases, and none of it's really working out. He gives up while he's painting one, and he's like, "No, I'm not meant for this anyway," and he like tears it apart and throws it into the wind.
Litters.
Basically.
Piece of shit.
So he throws it into the wind, and it carries it to this mural of these Greek muses, and it sort of brings them to life while the song "I'm Alive" plays. It's our first. It's sort of difficult to call this movie a musical since like it has a very.
It's a musical like Saturday Night Fever is a musical.
Yeah.
You know, I felt a lot of similarities because like the Bee Gees made like a lot of the music you hear in that movie for that movie, and it's like their big hits, and it's like really good music, like Staying Alive, Night Fever, and all this stuff. So, like, I love the soundtrack to Saturday Night Fever. I think it's the best of all time for any movie, just because the Bee Gees are killing it the whole time.
Yeah.
So this movie reminded me a lot of that, but with ELO, where they're just like making killer track after killer track, and putting it on top of this movie, and the movie gets its vibe from a band's performance, and then like builds from there.
Well, and I want to say I saw a like trivia thing on IMDb that was like they did the soundtrack and then wrote parts of the movie around it, and it's like that sort of shows.
I want to
like,
say that like Saturday Night Fever is kind of like that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, like there's in Staying Alive. Remember, I know like when you're just listening to it, it gets fucking weird all of a sudden where it's like life's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Somebody help me, and it's like what the fuck? But it makes sense when you see the movie because that's totally like what John Travolta's going through. But what were you gonna say?
Oh, it's like a reverse jukebox musical that usually those take popular songs and make them into the musical. and this one that turned musical songs into popular songs.
So they're all, the Greek muses, they pop out of this mural. They are doing this weird, some dancing, but it's
Hercules.
mostly like pantomiming that they're doing where they're like making weird poses and stuff.
Yeah.
They all teleport away, and this
They-
it reminded me of like Power Rangers when they
Yeah,
fly
It's like
around.
a beam of colored light, and I
Yeah.
don't know if that's supposed to be like symbolic or whatever, but they like beam down like Star Trek, and
Yeah.
no one seems concerned.
I was thinking like the title card of Superman, where like the S flies on screen when it leaves streaks behind.
Yeah.
And like when they're popping out of the mural, they're like outlined in neon.
Yeah,
And, like that's
yeah.
kind of a cool effect, but it's so like it's just like blind. Like most of this movie is just blinding light in your face, and it's like ah.
Yeah.
But it reminded me of Hercules, where just all the muses are coming out. And, yes, indeed. Fucking
It's also a much better movie. Than
yeah.
But yeah, they are all coming to life while the song's playing, and one of the muses, the one in the center, she appears, she does her whole beam of light thing, and then she's on roller skates. She bumps into Sonny, who's now at the beach, and he's like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
What you doing, lady?"
Ow, bitch.
Yeah, and then she kisses him, and the whole thing is like, "Oh, kiss by a muse."
Yeah.
Oh. So she kisses him, and then skates away, and he just sits there like a
This
fucking
this starts
moron.
So this starts the thing in this movie of Sonny very much underreacting to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like he gets kissed by a beautiful woman who appeared out of light,
By
and he's
Olivia
just-
Newton-John, yes.
and he's just like, "Oh man, that was pretty cool, man."
Yeah. And that song "I'm Alive" that plays for all of it, it's like it's fine. But they say like "I'm alive" like 26 times in like
Yeah.
a minute. I'm alive, I'm alive. It's like, yeah, I get it.
And then the painting is coming a lot.
Yeah, I see what you did there. Clever.
Let's write a scene around
Yeah.
it. So after that, Sonny, he's done freelancing since he wasn't able to find any inspiration. He goes back to his old job at Airflow Records where he enlarges record covers.
It's for like to make posters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting though that like, I don't know, this is very much like a product of its time, because like this would not be the most efficient way to do this like today.
Oh, you just print it bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's just really interesting that they, sort of going back on that.
No, I like that. Because for a minute I was like, so he paints album covers and then what do they do? And it's like, no, he just like blows them up so
just-
they can
yeah.
hang them up in record stores and be like, buy this album.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's cool.
And he gets like chewed out because he's a perfectionist, because that's the only thing artist protagonists are allowed to be. He's like, the man wants me to do it fast, but I want to put my heart and soul into this.
Sometimes I see more than what's in the cover, and I want to put my heart and soul into it. And then the boss reasonably is like,
It's like, that's
No.
art, but that's not a company.
yeah, that's later.
Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, he goes back to his job at Airflow Records. Everyone's giving him shit. They're like, "We thought you were gonna be the one that would finally make it out of all of us," and he's like, "Nah, I was gonna starve."
And they
was
have to
not
tell the
ideal.
audience that he's a ladies' man. 'Cause
Yes,
you're
yeah.
like, he is?
Wait, you've never gone up to a nice looking girl and talked to her in monotone and been like, "Oh," hey,
And then
good to
she
meet
kisses you and then skates away.
He's not even like hot enough to be able to do that.
That's because you didn't see him as the bad boy Don in the Warriors.
He does have a rockin' mullet.
So he bickers with his boss for a bit, and he gives him his next record cover that he needs to enlarge, and it's a Nine Sisters album, which there's nine new
I
sisters.
didn't even notice that.
But,
That's a good one.
and so Sonny is shocked to see that the woman on the cover is
Who
the one
sexually
that kissed,
assaulted him.
basically, yeah, is the one that kissed him earlier, and he's all like, "Oh shit!" He's talking to all his coworkers about it, and the one other dude coworker is like, "Oh, she came up to you and kissed you, but what did you do next?
What's the X-rated
version?"
Yeah, that was
and
weird.
it's very weird.
Well, and I'm saying, like, there's things later on in this movie that are very, like, Disney, and it's, like, a musical, and it's, like, kids, like, would watch it and stuff. But then there are, like, so many sex references and,
Yeah.
like, kind of explicit imagery and stuff. Like, there's a specific part that I'll talk about where it's very, like, I was watching and I was like, this is just right after a part for kids. This is kind of weird. So there's kind of, like, a weird disconnect with who it's trying to be like. Yeah, we're making jokes for kids, I think. But throw that in too.
So from there, Sonny, he's like, well, this is a record that we're like, it's one of the like, it's on our label or whatever. So he asks around the office to see if anyone knows who this lady is, since he's sort of like smitten with her now, I guess.
Was this before like anti-stalking laws were in place?
It gets like very creepy later, but we'll talk about that in just a second. He goes to like the office accountant, and he's like, I didn't pay her, she didn't get a W-2, she does not exist. And it's like, yeah, that's a very rational sort of thing to think. Then he asks the photographer who took the picture, and he's like, oh, like she appeared
She
in
came
frame.
and went. Yeah.
Yeah, and then disappeared. It's one of my best covers. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
And so that's...
He's also like posing with people that are just wearing like wires over their nipples.
Also,
Like
the other thing, everyone in the 80s, apparently, if they were wearing a buttoned shirt, they went so low. Like, they had, like, only the bottom button on there. Like, the photographer, the boss character.
Hell yeah.
Sonny, at the end, when he's, like, roller skating in the short shorts, like...
I think the rule is the more hair on your body, the lower you
But
can
Sonny
get.
is a no-hair boy.
Yeah,
No-hair
okay,
boy.
fair, he's breaking the rules.
But after that, Sonny, he starts going around town with the record,
Yeah.
showing it to people, and he's like, have you seen this lady? And just for context, this movie takes place in LA. LA had a population of around 3 million people in 1980, so the idea of someone going around person to person being like, you've seen this
Not
lady?
even with a real picture, but like with an album. It's like, bro, that's an album cover. I don't think she's real.
Are you on drugs?
Yeah.
dude? Like, so yeah, that plan goes about as well as you'd think. He comes across this one guy who's like a friend of his who's like trying to hook him up with his daughters. He like takes
That was
out his,
weird as
yeah,
hell.
and it's like they keep trying to drive home that he's a ladies' man. I just don't
Yeah.
buy it.
They're like, screw that album, lady. Look at my daughters. It's like,
Yeah.
ew, man.
They didn't walk up and kiss me. Fuck them.
That's like Lot's kids when the crowds came to Lot to be like, give us the angel so we can rape it. And he's like, no, just have my daughters. And they're like, no, we want the angel. That's a Bible story.
It's a really bizarre reference.
Yeah, it's
but,
like that.
Okay. Oh shit.
Not the coaster.
But after that, Sonny, he keeps going on his little search, and he hears a clarinet playing by the beach, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna go talk to a random stranger. So this is where we're finally like formally introduced to Danny McGuire. He's this older dude played by Gene Kelly, playing clarinet on the beach. They talk a bit about music. They sort of bond over that. Like, it's sort of this like, oh yeah, just he's like, oh, I know Beethoven.
I think that's why the movie's actually called Xanadu, is because they think he's on Xanax, like the whole movie. He's just like way too happy. And just like, isn't life just wonderful, my friend?
So they're hanging out for a bit, and Sonny spots the girl from the record cover, and it's like, oh shit, that's her, because he like told Danny about it.
Yeah.
He walks up to these two random women on like these, they're not motorcycles, they're like
Mopeds?
but they're not really mopeds either. They look like motorcycles, they're more like bicycles, though. It's weird.
Dude, he's wasting his time. I thought the girl with the tube top with the bike was
Yeah,
pretty
they were
fine,
both
man.
hot.
Like,
I thought
hey,
so
They're
too.
Yeah.
totally into giving him their bike, though. He's like,
It's
I
not-
need to borrow this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my
But
god.
It's like, you want
please.
my room key too? Fuck off.
It's not even their bike though, because they both were on their own bikes. There was a third bike next to them,
You never
and they
know.
were like, "You can just take it."
That's just how charming he is when he comes over there with his bent ass long nose, and he's like, "Hey, who's this? Your boyfriend's bike? My bike." And they're like, "Oh, how could we? What are we supposed to do?" He's just so charming.
But so he takes the bike, and chases after her. It's sort of creepy.
Would you
and
tell the guy who's showing everybody an album not to take your bike? I'd just be like, "Fucking whatever, man.
Yeah.
Just leave me alone."
It is very sort of. It's a little creepy. I'm gonna be honest. Like him giving that much chase to like a stranger.
He's like, "Right up, whoa!"
It's like James Bond was overly pushy, but it was, the 60s, so it's hilarious.
If
It's
Olivia Newton-John in the 80s just appeared
In
to
the
me,
80s.
just appeared and made out with me, I would give chase. I would. I can understand it.
So he chases after her, and he's going along this pier, and he gets distracted because she like teleports to like a different part of the pier, and then he falls.
There's
over.
crowds everywhere, and they don't really care. They're just like, a beam of light and a woman appeared. L.A.
Yeah, right.
It's like show business.
Well, it's funny because they could have just done like he falls off the pier, which is funny. He goes into the water, but like it's super high up, and he gives like a death shriek when he's about to hit the wall. He's like, ah! It's like terror. It's not like playful. And then he like flips over, and, like dies.
The bike is fine.
Yeah.
Because like I had like a memory of the bike also falling, and I was like, "Fuck him! Like, how's he gonna return it now?"
He can't.
But yeah,
He's a
the
piece of shit.
bike is fine. He like flips and it lands on the ground. It's fine. So he gets out of the water. Danny's sort of making fun of him. He's like, "Oh, you're a regular Errol Flynn kid. What other stunts do you know?"
Well, you missed the part where like Olivia Newton-John watches him wipe out and almost die, and like giggles,
And
and
she's
then
like, "Hee-hee."
shoots off into the sky in a beam
Yeah.
of laser light. And this is where
Right.
like I kind of like so Matthew and Ben were watching this at my house, and I was taking a shower, and I was going out, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll come back to watch this." But I sat down for like 2 minutes, and it was like him chasing the girl on the bike, and I'm like, how wacky. And then he dives off shrieking, and then she blasts off in a fucking Star Trek thing, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? So it's pretty weird. Out of context, I think, yeah.
I think a
It'd
lot
be
of
fun
this
to-
movie
yeah.
out of context would not
Could make a very long compilation video.
But he's sort of talking with Danny. He's like, "Yeah, this whole thing is messing me up," or whatever. And Danny's like, "Yeah, well, you should keep looking for her, you know."
But not in the water.
Yeah, and that's my whole thing with this, and like, sort of my big nostalgia for this movie is like Olivia Newton-John and Gene Kelly elevate this movie. Like, if they were not in it,
Oh, yeah.
it would be a fucking disaster. Like,
Yeah.
there's just something about Gene Kelly. Like, every scene he's in, he has this just smile that's so like
Yeah,
genuine.
It's Xanax do.
No,
I'm-
like I can be cynical a lot of times, but I was like, no, that is just pure joy and excitement whenever I see him on camera.
Yeah. No, he's good. I do like him in it.
So from there, Sonny, he gets on his roller skates. He's looking for the lady still, and hitches a ride on his friend's van, and
His hot dog van.
his hot dog van. Yeah, and he's like, "Yeah, you painted it for me.
I love
Let's
you.
reference this.
Fuck my
Yeah."
daughters.
So from there, they're sort of like he's hanging onto the back of it while he's skating, and they pass the building from the record cover that the lady was
It's
in
a
front
cool
of.
building, too.
Oh, and I like if we can talk about this now. Sort of a tragic story with that was that it was a auditorium where like I think JFK or one of the presidents like campaigned there. It had Elvis at one point performed there.
Huh.
They did wrestling matches, which they allude to in the movie. But you know, just sort of after the like the 50s and 60s, it sort of fell into disrepair. Homeless people moved in there, you know, sort of vagrants, and essentially with this movie they were hoping, or the community basically around that was hoping that it would sort of start a revitalization effort to sort of, you know, make the building like, you know, its former glory again and get it, you know, where they could actually use it. The sad thing is, eventually the homeless people that were in there, you know, they were burning garbage, and
No.
aside from the facade, which was made of stone, the rest was made of wood. Burning garbage in an auditorium that is primarily made of wood,
Damn.
not a good decision. So it burnt to the ground.
They're like double homeless.
Yeah, basically. But they eventually did sort of like bulldoze all that. They built a park, and they have like a community center type thing where they built one of the like pillars sort of to commemorate it. So it's like,
Is it Xanadu Park?
I don't know what it's. I
Better
think it's
be.
Pan Pacific Park because it was the
Fucking
Pan Pacific Auditorium.
Oh.
But like,
Well, it's very like it looks very 50s.
oh, and I
Like
love
the
it.
retro stuff. Yeah, there's like three
It's-
pillars coming out of the roof that are like just look fucking weird. Look like Futurama architecture.
And it has like these like not flagpoles, but like things on each pillar. It's a cool design. I like it. But he sees that building while he's riding along on the van, and he's like, "Hey, I'll stop here. You know, you can just go and do whatever."
The sound mixing here is really weird. Like they're at the camera is really far away from them, so you can like see the building, but it sounds like the main character and the hot dog driver are talking to each other, and it's like normal conversation voice, and it's like right in your ear, like they're right in front of you. Yeah, it just is. It's awkward. It's kind of weird.
So Sonny, he recognizes the building, goes in to investigate. He breaks and enters into what is presumably private property, and he hears the lady singing, and he sees her like skating around. She's singing the song Magic, and so she's doing this whole thing where like it's like this sort of dimly lit like the inside of the auditorium. There's like junk everywhere that she's skating around. She's like teleporting and like vanishing and stuff, and of course Sonny is like,
he doesn't give a fuck.
Huh?
Yeah.
What's going on?
He's like, whoa, that's a cool trick.
Yeah. But, they're sort of talking. He's like, oh, we keep meeting like this. And at the end, he asks her name. She says it's Kira, and then she vanishes again. And that's the end of that scene. But after that, we have Danny. He bumps into Sonny while they're hanging out at a music store. Or he's hanging out at a music store. Because essentially, like, I think I sort of skipped over the scene, but there's another part where his boss is like, fuck you, you're getting too into your art, go hang the fucking posters.
Yeah, well,
I'm an 80s business suit, and you need to listen to me and give up on dreams.
Yes. I think that scene is the most cringy in the dialogue, because, like, his boss comes out.
Where he's like, Simmons, you have a way with words.
Yeah.
And he says it in that exact
yeah, and he's just like such a piece of shit to his boss. It sounds like someone's having like a fantasy about how they would talk to their boss. And like, next time he says some shit like that to me, I'm just going to tell him, like, stuff like that. Where it's like, he comes out and he's like, hey man, you're taking too long on this project I gave you. What the fuck? And he's like, well, how about it's finished when it's finished.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. And the boss is like, 5 minutes my office. And he's like, fuck you, old man. And then he goes to the guy's office, which is like super 80s.
There's
like everything
a
is
weird
suede.
running motif too, where his coworkers are trying to talk down Sonny and be like, hey man, just like do what he says. If he says it's
Wednesday, then say it's Wednesday, even if it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
And he keeps on bringing it up with no context. It's like, I get it, Mr. Boss Man, it's Wednesday. And he's like,
yeah, I know.
It's like, Tuesday's Wednesday. And then just
Wednesday,
walks away.
And then it does
it's
the
like...
shutter effect to change scenes again. But he also like goes in his boss's office.
And makes fun of his artwork.
Yeah, the boss is like, you might think I don't know what art is, but I made that. Like, do you see that art? Like, I did that. And he's like, I can tell. It's like, you're a fucking dick. And he's like, well, I stopped making art and I started running this business. He's like, yeah, that's probably for the best. It's like, dude,
you're an asshole.
Fuck you. And his boss is like, I know you want to put the work in. Like, I'm being nicer than the boss, but this is what the boss is saying. He's like, I know you want to fucking make all this shit yours like an artist would, but we're running a business. All right? I'm giving you a task. Do your task. Don't fucking do what you want to do. Do what I'm telling you to do. Yeah. And he's like, Tuesday's Wednesday. And it's like, Jesus Christ. He sucks. The boss should have fired him on the spot.
So Sonny goes to hang art at the music store. Danny shows up. He got this new Glenn Miller album. And he's like, yeah, like, let's come over to my house and
he's
we'll
like,
listen.
You wouldn't know Glenn Miller. And he's like,
I know who Beethoven is.
Yeah. And he's like, do you like rock and roll? And Gene Kelly's like, I like rock and roll. And he's like, well, then I like Gene Kelly. And then he's like, fuck yeah.
So they go over to Danny's house, which is this fucking enormous mansion.
Yes.
And they, like, explain it away with, like, I bought it from some vaudeville singer.
No, he says, like, he went into, like, his family's construction business, so he has a plot-convenient amount of money.
Okay.
Nice.
So, yeah, they listen to the record, and Danny is like, oh, like, I played this clarinet solo on this record, and it's sort of this... We're getting more backstory on him. They go to his weird memorabilia back room, which is like Sonny, I don't know. This is a stranger that you
Man's
just met."
obsessive, yeah.
Yeah, so
And
he
it's kind of like the whole thing, like, could have very easily been like, let me show you my back room. And just, like, kind of, have this drink that I prepared
Did you
off
tell
screen.
anyone you were coming here?
Yeah. Why don't you get a little more comfortable, Danny? I'm gonna get a little more comfortable. I hope you don't mind.
So we get more backstory on Danny though, and he's like, yeah, I used to run this club, you know, and he's like, I'd really like to open another one if I could just find the right place. And this whole thing is like a weird reference to another Gene Kelly movie called CoverGirl, where he plays a character called Danny McGuire who runs a club in New York.
Oh,
so
weird.
it's like
Just the fuck.
Just like how Danny's the same character from the Warriors, he gave up a life of crime after he saw a friend get hit by a subway car.
100%.
he aged about 30 years in like 3 years, too. There you go.
No. Not Danny, Sonny.
Oh.
My bad.
Oh yeah, that's actually exactly what happened. This is direct follow up
To both the Warriors and what is it?
It's
CoverGirl?
It's a trilogy.
So, Sonny, you know, they're sort of hanging out for a bit, and then he's like, oh, I gotta leave now. And so Danny, he's reminiscing about the good old days at the club while he's listening to the record. And he hallucinates this dance sequence with his old sweetheart who looks exactly like Kira. Like, they show, I think, a picture of her on the Glenn Miller record cover, and it is her.
Yeah, like Olivia Newton-John is the one playing this woman.
Yes,
in his flashback.
yeah. And it's implied that like she was the muse who inspired him when he was at the club. And we'll talk more about that, like their sort of relationship later. But this is when we get Whenever You're Away From Me. It's this sort of musical dance number with Gene Kelly.
That was a magical 5 minutes.
Oh, it's excellent.
So yeah, it's great. They like tap dance and shit, but like the beginning and end of it are just fucking like funny, just weird. That this old man is just like in his house spacing out from like his overdose, and it's just like his brain is giving its death throes of memory, and it's like this band like halfway appears, but it's like semi-transparent still, and it's like it doesn't change the setting. It's still just like in his big empty house.
Yeah.
Which is like, I think if you redid this movie, that would be a giant showstopper where it's like he's remembering what the 40s were like, and then he could pan
Go
into this
to the club
immaculate,
that he had.
yeah, do a full thing. Everybody's dancing, like, and they do that in
And
this
they
movie
were
later.
Oh, yeah.
They do. They had the means to do it, but they just like half-ass it, and it's still just like a weird, I don't know, atmosphere of this guy's empty mansion that he's doing this with, just him and Olivia Newton-John. And then he fades out of it, and he's still just like sitting in the chair. Or no,
But,
he's like
he
spinning and empty his arms, like his arms are empty because
Like
he
he was
thinks he's
holding
spinning
her,
Kira.
yeah.
So he just looks like a fucking psycho.
But like and again, this goes back to like Gene Kelly is just like an excellent performer.
Yes.
He at first looks sort of like sad because he's like, oh, it was just in my head, but then he has like this smile, like, you know, even if it is just my memories, like he still is like, yeah. He just got his smile. So after that, Sonny, you know, he basically goes back to work this like sort of late night. He's still working on the painting of Kira in front of the auditorium. He paints for about 2 seconds, and then Kira shows up, and she like very comically, like almost like a slasher movie, is like in the background.
Yeah, just
and
like
then,
he like moves away, and she's not there, and he moves forward, and she's there,
and she's behind him.
yeah,
after
and
that.
she's like in the shadows.
She's
She's just
like-
like, oh my god.
She's like, oh, that's really good. And he's like, oh, shit.
Ah!
When he sounds terrified, too. Like, that's the other thing. And he's like, oh, my God, you almost gave me a heart attack.
What the
Like,
fuck are you doing here?
yeah, so, you know, they're sort of talking, and he's like, oh, I can leave. I've done enough work for tonight. It's like, you painted for 2 seconds.
And it's not even just that we only see him painting for 2 seconds. He like walks in, gets his supplies, paints for 2 seconds, and then is like, that's enough.
Yeah, Kira's here now. It's
Yeah.
all good. So, yeah, she freaks him out, and then they're like, oh, well, we can go and skate around. They have this trippy, like, soundstage music inspiration thing.
I'm confused at the business model of like the company he works at.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Because
Was
I get
that?
like artist studio, cool. And then there's like
They're like, this is where they do cocaine to get inspired.
Yeah, honestly.
it's like Industrial Light and Magic level special effects. It's
Yeah.
like, yep, it's in the small studio. We also have professional lights and like laser shows.
Yeah, it's
and
like there's like a
sparklers.
lit gazebo, has like the control panels.
Yeah.
And they just like press a few buttons, and then they're in Egypt, they're in the rooftops of New York, they're somewhere else, they're skating and flying all around, and all these like, intricate set work is like raising and
A
falling.
like full
Yeah, it's like,
train
what
like
the fuck?
appears like
Yeah.
the front of a train.
Steam machines.
Yeah.
It's very surreal the whole time, and like. Not so subtle imagery of they're in an oasis and the palm
Yeah, the
trees
palm trees.
the wood is raising.
But this is all happening while the song suddenly plays, and it's like, oh, they're falling in love.
And he's
Oh.
getting hard.
And that too.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, they do all that, and it's a cute scene.
That it helps with the establishment that they're in love, but also like they don't know each other at all,
and
they
she
never
like
really address it.
refuses to ever tell him anything
And that's
beyond her
true,
name.
but he does. It's not like he's telling her things. He's like, "I'm Sunny and I'm an artist." That's,
But she like knows a lot about him already. Like,
yeah,
I want to say maybe it's
I don't
either
know.
with
he's
him
just
or
a doofus '80s guy who has no depth, and she's like, "I've existed for centuries, but this man."
He's an artist.
I
He
am in
writes
love.
with his soul.
I've never. You don't think fucking Salvador Dali would be more interesting? You don't think Hemingway could have used a muse? Huh?
I don't know, Michael Beck.
Michael Beck. That's
Michael
the guy.
Beck, that's the guy. So they do all that, and then Sonny's boss, who is still also in the office really late for some reason, shows up, and he's like, "Malone, is that you? Fuck
You just
you!"
spent $3,000 in energy costs.
And I really like they do not swear often in this movie, but it's always the boss swearing. Like earlier, it was when he like put his hand on the paint after he yelled at Sonny, and he
Yeah.
like lifts it up and he's like, "Shit!" And then in this scene, he is like trying to turn off the machines, and it causes like fireworks to go off, and he's like, "Oh shit!"
And he dies in a fiery industrial accident, homaging to the fate of the auditorium. It's very heavy.
But he chases them out of there, and they're sort of skating away, and what do you know? They end up going to the auditorium from earlier.
Seems
It's
like
a big. It's like it looks like a Starship Enterprise graffitied on it, but I just wanted like a big fat dick, like Dick and hairy balls, like graffitied on the front of the building.
So they go there, and I think earlier he had talked about Danny being like, yeah, he wants to open a club, and he wants me to help him. Isn't that crazy? And Kira's like, I'm Australian, so you should do what I say. And he's like, yeah.
Australian.
Olivia Newton-John. She's Australian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If a beautiful Australian woman tells you to open a club,
You open a club.
you open a club. Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, but so yeah, they're sort of talking about that, and he's like, well, I don't know about that, but she's like, well, maybe Danny's dream is big enough for the both of you, and you should do that. So after that, we go to Sonny, who shows Danny the auditorium, and they sort of have this weird like thing where they're both picturing what they would want to do with the club if they were to open it. Danny has like this sort of 40s, 50s big band thing that he's got in mind, and Sonny is picturing this like 80s rock club with these people in like these orange jumpsuits and stuff.
It's goofy. Danny's vision is infinitely better.
Yes, yeah.
Like the dancing is better, the crowds, the music, the big band, everyone's super into it. And Danny's version, Sonny's version is just like the same riff over and over,
Yeah.
with people like
Grinding on
tying each other up with
electrical-
guitar chords and fucking.
Yeah.
it's the future of entertainment.
It looked like the bands from like Batman Beyond. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like this is a synth, cyberpunk rock. That's what that looked like.
so throughout this whole like thing where they're picturing it, we have the song Dancin', and it's this like, it's basically two different songs. It's like a 40s, 50s like like I don't even
Big
know
band,
yeah,
like
big
Frank
band
Sinatra
song.
style.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra type song, and then this like 80s rock song, and it's the length of 2 songs, but like in one, and so it drags on. Like it's easily my least favorite sequence in the entire movie.
Really?
If it was half as long, it would have been a good song.
Yeah.
Like, it was catchy, at a good tempo, but it's just, like you said, it's the length of 2 songs.
I do think it goes long, but I wasn't like super annoyed with it because it was cool. Because like, it's not just the music; it's like there's a lot of dance routine going on, and,
Yeah.
and like we said, the choreography is really good, and like the dancing that's happening in the '40s one, like there's multiple sets that happen, and dancers switch up their styles, and they're doing all this crazy flipping and stuff, and then when they merge, it's really cool.
Yeah, like
I like that a lot.
thematically, I like the idea. It
Like
just
the
could have
sets
been like
literally move into each other. I
Yeah.
thought that was awesome. Like the stages combine, and all the people are together and stuff. But yeah, it's weird.
yeah.
Well, not weird. It does take like an extra minute than I would have liked, but I didn't think it was just like I don't think that was the worst part of the movie. Absolutely not.
Okay. So from there, this sort of like mashup thing is enough to make Danny be like, yeah, we're gonna open the club. We'll be partners, and it'll be great. You know,
okay.
we'll do that.
Danny should absolutely open a club. He has the means.
He has experience.
He has experience.
Yeah.
The fuck does Sonny bring to the table?
Yeah, and Sonny is even like, I don't know anything about opening a
and he's
club.
like, well, I like you. I like your spirit, kid.
Yeah.
It's just like, what the fuck? He's done nothing. He literally just approached you on the beach and
He's
was
like, "You got a good
hey,
eye,
old man,
'cause you're
your
a
clarinet
painter."
music is too fucking sad, idiot.
Yeah.
That's literally
Where's
what
the
Sonny...
funeral? Yeah.
And then he likes Glenn Miller. I don't know. It's just kind of silly. I'm expecting Danny to just do like some giant scheme, like sign everything in Sonny's name and not pay anything back, and just leave Sonny with the massive debt. He could have.
Well, and like in the Broadway version, there is like not a double cross, but like there is something where Danny is sort of like duplicitous a little bit.
They
like,
don't
there's
go into a long conversation about business structure and about, now how is this general partnership different than a limited one? And they explain it in song what an LLC is.
Now keep in mind, this will come back for the end of the movie, that Danny's vision is a 40s Glenn Miller, Frank Sinatra style club. Sonny's vision is the 80s pop. They come together, that's the theme, and then they're like, never mind roller disco.
Yeah.
So that's not what they do. They like do a whole 8-minute thing for it, and then at the end of the movie it's just roller disco in their club. And it's like, the
but with
fuck?
people dressed in 40s
That's
and
neither of your
50s
visions.
outfits.
Yeah, like Danny's in a tuxedo, and
Yeah.
it's just like, what the fuck? You didn't do either. So it's like all this build up that I really liked, and then they did nothing.
Yeah.
So stupid.
So
But, yeah.
they agree to open the club. Kira shows up, and Danny like recognizes her as the woman he knew in the 50s, but he like is like, well, there's no way, and so he's like, well, whatever, I just won't address that.
And Glenn
then-
Miller's so fucking charming and high that he's just like, I feel like I know you, but
Yeah.
I'll let it slide.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they're sort of talking, and he's like, yeah, but I don't know what
I
to
said
call
Glenn
it.
Miller. Gene Kelly.
Gene
not
Kelly,
Glenn Miller.
yeah. Goof. They're talking, and he's like, well, I don't know what to call it. Like, what should the name be? And Kira just randomly recites the poem Kubla Khan, as one does,
Right.
by Samuel Taylor
I always
Coleridge.
catch myself doing that.
Yeah, you're just like, in Xanadu
Yeah.
did Kubla Khan. But yeah, she does that, and he also knows the poem, so like they're sort of finishing each other's sentence. And he's like, yeah, Xanadu.
I feel like
that's
if
catchy.
I feel like if you and me started rattling off the Darth Plagueis monologue from Revenge of the Sith, and we just
We'll
decide
name our breakfast restaurant Plagueis's.
that is the equal level of logic in the scene.
Plagueis's.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's do this. You can do all the funding and everything like Danny, and I'll be there, like Sonny.
Yeah.
Give me half though.
So, they decide they're going to call it Xanadu. They start breaking ground. They're working on the club. All the construction crews doing their thing. And Danny's like, yeah, we'll celebrate with this champagne, even though we've only been working for a week on
It's
it.
the good stuff.
Yeah, he's like, ooh, only the vintage. Only
Yeah.
this.
Hey Danny, I'm excited too, but it's like 11 in the morning.
I'm drunk. They said not to mix these pills with the champagne, but
So Sonny and Kira, they go off with their little glasses of champagne. They're hanging out at this like weird.
Looks like a roof.
It's
Like across the street.
yeah. It looks like it's a theater that you would see in like a park. Like it's like that sort of half auditorium dome thing, and there's like a bunch of seating sort of going on.
They were like in the club again.
Yeah, they don't do a good job.
I
of,
thought they were on the roof.
I don't know where they were. It's dark.
It's
and they're
weird.
in a building. I felt like.
They're outside, I think.
Are they?
It's weird.
It's
a very weird
Okay.
thing that happens. But they like, are drinking together, and then we get this really sort of bizarre sequence animated by Don Bluth, which is like,
Well, also-
it shows because it is one of the best parts of this movie.
Absolutely. Before this, they're like, he's going like, Kira, what,
Tell me more
tell me about
you.
yourself. And she's just like, no. She's like, I have sisters. And he's like, wow, where are you in the city? She's like, I'm in an apartment. And he's like, oh, where? On the second floor. And he's just like, bitch.
And she's like, with my sisters.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
And he's like, so you live with somebody? Yeah. And he's like, okay, what the fuck is this? She's like, yeah, with my sisters. And he's like, bitch, are you cheating on your husband right now? Like, what is happening?
You talking about if Olivia Newton-John was doing that kind of stuff, you'd
I would
also
be annoyed.
giggle.
No, I'd be
Wow.
like, I'd give her more leeway. I'd have to suppress my annoyance. But I think at that point, like 5 answers deep of dodginess, I'd be like, bitch, fucking, what is this right now? What are you doing?
But
You're freaking me out. Are you a serial killer?
we get this animated sequence, like I was saying, with Don Bluth, while the song "Don't Walk Away" plays.
It's so good.
It is so
That
good.
song's amazing.
Yeah.
I added it to my phone at that moment, and I knew it before. Like it's a famous song, but I didn't have it on my phone. I was like, oh, I know this one, and I got full body chills. I did. I had
Because you
goose
learned
flesh.
that love is real.
That's right.
When I think you were telling me, Ben, like they added this sequence.
Yeah, they had
kinda-
the song, but like they wanted to add it after most of production had wrapped, and it was easier just to make an animated part whole cloth than do reshoots.
Well, God bless him, because it's Dan. What did Dan Bluth do?
Don Bluth.
Don Bluth.
He
Because
did-
it looked like Peter Pan, Little Mermaid.
It's an American. He did an American Tale, Anastasia, like that sort of.
Okay,
That's
because
sort
it
of,
was very Disney-esque.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. He did work for Disney. I think he did The Rescuers also.
Okay, because like they turn into fish and they turn into birds, and they're on like a rose, and it's very, very Disney looking, and it
Yeah.
was so shocking to me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know it was coming, and then they just like they kiss after she like won't answer any questions,
And it
it's
like
just, whatever.
transitions to the rose.
Yeah, like super sparkle transitions, and then it's all animated, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's so good.
After that, though, again, this is like a similar thing where I almost wonder if they didn't know where to put this song, or they were like, shit, we got to come up with a scene for this. So they're getting ready for opening night at the club, and Danny doesn't have anything to wear.
Danny.
And so they have this, like, I'm gonna be real, Olivia Newton-John, bless her heart, and Michael Beck in this scene, their delivery of this, like, interaction is horrible. Like, they're like, you gotta get glitz. And he's like, well, where do I
Glitz?
get glitz? At a licensed glitz store. And
Yeah.
it's like, what the fuck is that? Is that an 80s thing that I don't know? Like, what are we talking about? Like,
powdered, fluffed. What? Fucked, Danny. Huh?
We're gonna do cocaine.
Yeah. What?
yeah, so they
You
go.
mean like this?
I came prepared. But they go to this franchised glitz store and they do this outfit, like, sort of makeover montage where
Yeah,
he's...
they do the like trying on outfits at the department store that's out of like a bad 90s chick flick.
I loved it.
You're a schmuck.
I mean, it my problem with it is the song I really enjoy. And
Yeah, the song was dope.
I even enjoy the dancing. The problem with it is they have all these sound effects that the extras are making where they're like, "Woo, ooh," throughout the song. And it just, like, if I were to ever do a fan edit of this, I would just do the song
Yeah.
and just like dub over.
Well, and Gene
with
Kelly's
the-
like all the background too, like the imagery of just like him stepping out
he's
in
having
whatever
a blast.
outfit.
Yeah,
and he's
and
having
I-
a good time. And it's
I like
yeah,
that.
that's funny.
I even like the they do like this whole like pinball thing at the end where he's like the
Yeah.
ball and he's punching.
Well, they do this
the-
thing where it's like, right, so he's the ball in the pinball machine. Every time he hits like a button, then all these flags come out and stuff. But
Yeah,
also it's
yeah.
just like this movie, every single chance it gets, blasts these effects like over the entire screen of like seizure-inducing just like madness.
flashes of light and stuff.
Bespeckled
Yeah.
beams
Shimmering
of light that
stars,
shimmer
yeah.
over everything, and it's very just like overlaid and added in after these scenes, and it's just like, oh my god, my retinas. like the flags and the effects on the pinball things were enough. But
Yeah.
they had to just they put in these fucking like
Like they throw Gene Kelly, he like throws up a hat and then is like outlined in green fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
And then it just like
Catches it on his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very over the top with all of their After Effect lighting. It's just like, Jesus Christ. They found this technology and they were like, look at what you can do with it. All of it. Put it all in the movie.
But yeah, they're doing this while the song "All Over the World" plays.
Which is a bop.
Yes, it is a bop. As the song is ending, though, we see the like front of the auditorium, and they sort of like do this transition where it's very clearly a matte painting that they have done to make it look like revitalized with like all these neon lights and stuff, and it has the big like Xanadu sign. I fucking love whatever font they used, which is
Yeah.
a weird thing to fixate on, but we'll talk
It's
about
a
it
weird
later.
It's like jagged but slim.
Well, I'll just
It's
talk about it now.
sexy.
They have that logo of Xanadu on the back of like a jacket.
Uh-huh.
I want that fucking
Yeah,
patch.
yeah.
I will find it someday and get a jacket
It's
with
good.
that.
It's good shit.
But yeah, they transition to this matte painting of Xanadu, and then from there, before opening night, Kira and Sunny, they go to like, I don't even know where they are.
Like
They're
a
in
trailer.
it's like a random person's apartment.
I thought that was Kira's apartment.
Maybe, but like it looks abandoned though, except for like the TV. Like it's sort of cluttered everywhere, like dusty.
I just assumed it was Kira's. I don't know.
It's weird. So they're in this apartment together, and you know, Kira finally tells Sunny that she's a muse, and she's like, "I can't fall in love with you. It's forbidden," or whatever. That's the rules. And he doesn't believe her, despite the fact that he's seen her teleporting throughout the movie.
That's just what Australians can do.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know, maybe.
Sonny, I have to tell you, I'm Australian. From down under. And then she goes, yes. And then she flies up into the sky because gravity's switched on her.
So she uses her powers to alter the dictionary definition of muse. And there's this sort of funny thing where he's reading it, and do you believe me now, Sonny? And he's like,
the fuck?
how'd you do that?
Yeah.
He is very underreacting to the supernatural
He's
happening
like, wait a
around him.
darn minute.
And so then Kira also is like, you don't believe me? Turns on the TV, and it's this like sort of 50s like gangster
Black and white
movie. And the character on the screen is like this detective dude, and he starts talking to Sonny. He's like, oh, what do you think I should do, Sonny? Should I dive for the gun or make a
Or
martini?
are you going to stop being a bitch? And Kira's a muse, so
Yeah,
I
he's-
don't know.
And
Like,
he's just
and-
like, hey, that's not normal. It's like, how are you even talking right now?
Right? That's some like Stephen King shit.
The dude with the gun in the movie is like, she says she's a muse, she's a muse. And then Kira appears in the movie as well. And of course, Sonny still just looks like a dingus.
Look at
and he's like,
How'd you record all that? I do like that like how they did that. Like it's impressive. Like to have that effect, like to put the black and white on the TV and have it like recorded in your movie of them doing that
Yeah,
stuff. Like
it's-
that's
it's
cool.
sorta like-
movie making.
It reminds me of in Spaceballs when they play Spaceballs the movie.
Yeah.
And they like sync it up at the same time. And
Yeah.
they have that whole thing where it's like, now's here. And where's the next scene? Now. But yeah, Kira's like, I gotta go now, goodbye. And Sonny becomes Poopy Boy.
Yeah,
and
he's real sad.
he's like, huh? Yeah, so he's all sad now.
But I loved her. Why?
I met her 2 days ago.
Hot.
But he's all stressy, depressy now. He's on the same rock that Danny was at on the beach earlier. And Danny shows up, and he has this, like, I didn't, like, write the exact quote down, and I'm kicking myself now. He's like, dreams don't die on our own, we kill them.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, you got, like, way too deep there. But he sort of is like, because when he was running his old club, he didn't chase after her when she left, and he's
You
like
respected a woman
that.
saying no?
He's also like, if you don't go after her in 30 years, you'll be like me, sitting on that rock full
Like
of
you
regret.
are right now.
Yeah. And he's like, she's in here, and like touches his heart, and he's like, so that means she's out there. Go
He's
get
like,
her.
if she came here, then you can go there.
Yeah,
and find
yeah.
her. Yeah, but that's enough to get Sonny to at least angstily like begin skating around town and like looking for her. He ends up coming across the mural of the Muses while he's skating, and he sort of like is longingly skating while the song "The Fall" is playing. He's like caressing the mural. It's sort of creepy. And like one sort of interesting thing, this is a plot point that is referenced in sort of like the development of this movie, was that Sonny was the one who painted that mural. And they
That
sort
would
of
have worked really well.
yes, and they reference it once in the movie when he's like, I painted a mural, I painted another guy's van, and that's the only thing that remains of
Dude,
that
what?
plot point.
That would have totally been even why like Kira loves him.
Yes, yeah. But they, for whatever reason, were
Like
like,
she's
no,
almost like his creation too.
yeah.
God, dude, what the fuck?
So, he's angstily skating around. He sees the mural, and then he platform 9 3/4 his way into it. He like jumps
He
through it
actually
like a
just
portal.
smacks it head first and gives himself brain damage. And as he's bleeding out on the side of the road, is hallucinating the rest of the movie.
Inside of the painting, though, we have Sonny. It's like this weird, like trippy, like
It's the space between spaces, pretty much.
it's when they go plaid in Spaceballs. Like we hear the disembodied voice of Zeus, who Sonny is sort of like trying to get him to let Kira go.
Very unintimidating voice for Zeus, by the way.
Well, there's that, but then like Sonny's way of convincing them is also like, we love each other, and on Earth that's a pretty rare thing.
Sonny
and
has some real balls talking to... He just learned that gods 100% exist, and he's just like, hey, I think this is real silly. I don't get to see her.
Like Zeus
And-
literally like shoots lightning at him. And he just doesn't give a
Yeah,
fuck.
well, Sonny's like, I'll stay here till hell freezes over, and the lightning flashes. They're like, you can't say that here. Like, but yeah, they're sort of talking. Eventually, Kira's mom, who insert Greek name here, it says it on
Hera?
the Wikipedia page. Not Hera. It's whoever the Muse's mother is. It's something
Oh.
else.
I forgot Zeus is a fucking playboy.
Also that, but
He's a regular Sonny.
her mom is sort of like, maybe just for one night, like you should think about it. And then Kira sings Suspended in Time, and it's just like the choreography or lack thereof in this.
She
it's
just kind of like sways the whole
she
song.
sways and is like looking into the camera. It's really not very well.
I literally fell asleep. I fell asleep, and I woke back up in the next scene, and I was like, oh shit, what did I miss? And it was just like her song, and I was like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah, but she sings that, and then that's enough to convince Zeus to be like, oh, maybe just for one night or forever. I keep getting them mixed up.
They make that joke like 3 times in that scene, and it doesn't land any of them.
Yeah. I don't know, and like so I just don't know why this is like our portrayal of Olympus as well. Like they're like weird, sort of going back on that, like weird lights when they show the mural and it's like, oh, like a cloudy mountain, and
Yeah,
it's like that would have
just
been
didn't have the budget.
yeah.
No, I think it's. I mean, like Zeus made a good point. He's like, bitch, the Muses go for people's like artistic dreams and shit, and they help people realize this. Other people have dreams, asshole. They need this muse. She needs to go
And
fulfill
Sonny's
people's
argument
dreams.
with that is, we'll just send another one.
Yeah.
It's like, there's only 9 of them, bro.
For the entire world, you're being selfish.
But, yeah, that's enough to convince Zeus. And then we flash over to opening night at the club. And Sonny actually showed up in his dope jacket with the Xanadu logo. And after they do this, like, it's not really a song. They're just sort of skating around the set and, like, clapping and making noises.
Club would not make money. They have far too many staff.
Yeah, I don't know what the business model is here at all, but...
Was that all staff, choreography, and singing?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah, they're fucked.
But, they're skating around the set, as you would, because you want to show off your $1 million set that you designed, which I see you added this in here. It's about 5% of the movie's budget, which is fucking insane. They're showing off the sets, and Kira shows up, and she sings the title song, Xanadu.
Well, and it gets so fucking hype. It's Gene Kelly's in his tux, because they're
like clapping, and it leads into it.
It's clapping, and you're like, okay, this is cool. And Gene Kelly's in his tux, so I don't know why they'd had a whole sequence about him finding something to wear, right?
Yeah.
It's like his whole vision of the club. They're like, well, that was pointless, so fuck off with that. But they're just clapping and skating and shit, and then you hear like dun 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 dun, and you're like, here it comes.
I work from home, and I like stopped what I was doing to go into the den to rewatch this scene.
It's good shit.
So as we've established, this song is a fucking banger. It is excellent.
It made me watch this whole movie.
Honestly, that's a good reason to watch it. But the problem with it is they sandwich 2 other songs in between it. And
I'm like, so weird.
Like, I thought the movie was over.
Me too.
Because it stops, and it's like an overhead shot, and you think like it's just gonna falling action and credits roll, but nope.
Yeah.
There's
here's a weird country one for some reason.
Yeah. Well, the first one I liked too. It was kind of like,
it's fine.
It was 80s. She's like Josie and the Pussycats kind of thing.
Yeah, and the like backup
the other
dancers
muses.
are the other muses. Yeah. Which is a neat touch, but it just, I don't know why they felt that was necessary. The country one is horrible.
Horrible.
I hate that one.
Yeah, so bad.
Like
she's like trying to do a country accent too, and it's just like awful.
Yeah.
And this whole time, Sonny just looks like a goddamn doofus. Who just got off laughing gas or something.
Yeah, like literally the god of the universe was like, you cannot date my daughter. And then she shows up, and he's just like, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But, they have sandwiched these weird, mediocre songs. Then we get, like, one final reprise of Xanadu. And then Kira is on, like, this weird pedestal in the middle of the club that's like rises
getting
up.
Hard again.
It's like I specifically designed it for just this reason. But no, it, like, rises up, and then all the muses and her teleport Power Rangers style again into beams of light, and Sonny's just like, well, shit.
He's just alone in the club. He's just like, oh, she was real hot.
Yeah.
I really wanted Sonny to be like, well, I'm sad, so I own a club now. Let's get over it. Get bottle service and all the bitches in the club like at his table, and he's just like making out with 5 different ones and fucked up. And Kira shows up like, just let me go. We could be together. And he's just a big piece of shit, like with all these girls. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So Sonny, he's all sad now that she's gone, and Danny, things are sort of winding down for the night at the club, and Danny shows up and he's like, after one song. I mean 3 songs.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Technical,
True.
But Danny shows up and he's like, hey, there's someone I want you to talk to, and Sonny's like, I don't wanna at first, and then he's like, no, I think you should really talk to this person. Yeah, and he turns around, and it's someone who bears a striking resemblance to Kira, she's like a waitress there, and I don't really know, like, he's just like, I just want to talk. And then it, like, starts to roll credits as it, like, fades to black on them, just sort of, like, talking. And that's
then it plays Xanadu all over again in the credits.
Yes. So, overall, what did y'all think of the movie?
I had too much fun watching it. Because it was so, like, weird. Like, I've literally never seen a movie like this. With just, like, all of the effects going on at one time, and you're just like, Jesus Christ. And just, like, the the routines and like and ELO playing the whole time. It just feels like a music video, honestly, for like most of the movie. And it was like, what, an hour and 20 minutes or something?
Yeah.
Like, thank God. If this movie was 2 hours, I would fucking hate it. But it was just very watchable. I literally just put it in, and then I was like, oh, and that's it. All right, cool.
That's how
dope.
it was a very fun, bad movie.
Yeah.
One sort of what I was thinking about while watching it recently was like, it's not as inept as a movie like The Room, but it is so like they believed in what they were making, even if the product doesn't live up to like the hype of being like, oh, like the next Grease. It's like they were so like genuine in their creation of it. Like I never felt like it was like, oh, this is just a cash grab sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like it felt really genuine to me.
It was very original, if this is the original concept for it. It's like a muse shows up and, oh, okay, what?
I didn't write this down, but this is actually a remake of sorts of a similar story with Rita Hayworth, who was in CoverGirl, with like a similar sort of like plot.
Huh.
Where like a muse inspires someone. I don't remember what that movie was called, but like that was something like this is an adaptation loosely.
Well, take back all the praise we gave. The writers are hacks and deserve their failure.
I don't know, this just feels like it would fall into the very like, this is a cult classic movie that was received very poorly because people thought it would be better. But it's like it's not Rocky Horror Picture Show. It doesn't have that much of a following, but I can see it being followed like that, where people are like, oh, I love this movie, you know, it's so great because, you know, it's so unique and this and that, and like the perform, like, well, you know, you got Gene Kelly and Olivia Newton-John.
Just having them in it alone, I think.
And the ridiculous ass effects and the $1 million set at the end and Electric Light Orchestra. I mean, it's like, come on, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
And again, like I was saying, for me, I am very nostalgic for this movie, and I admit that it blinds me, you know. But sort of when it came out, obviously we've alluded to the fact that it was pretty critically panned. You know, it was sort of ripped apart at the time, and it was actually one of the inspirations for the Golden Raspberry Awards.
Wow.
One of the like award creators saw a double feature of this and Can't Stop the Music, and was so like that was the worst thing I've ever had to sit through.
That's amazing.
That he was like, I'm gonna make a like worst of movie like award
Incredible
thing. And so yeah, in the inaugural Golden Raspberry Awards, Xanadu won Worst Director, but it was also nominated for Worst Picture, Worst Actor, Worst Actress, and Worst Original Song.
Olivia Newton-John, Worst Actress? Bro, that's ridiculous.
I mean, worst actor was
I could see it.
Michael Beck.
Yeah, I could see that.
100%, but is it worst actress?
I mean,
Yeah,
what other actress was in it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and like,
Ridiculous.
I'd have to look at what else was nominated that year, but like, I don't know. I didn't think she was terrible.
No.
Like, it is just interesting.
There's
though,
moments
that,
where she sucked.
yeah.
Worst song that was nominated was Suspended in Time.
That's the one you fell asleep during.
Oh, okay, dope. Yeah,
So it's
that's
like,
where
yeah,
that wasn't very good.
That's fair. Yeah. But yeah, so it obviously not really well received. Part of the Golden Raspberry Awards, but the soundtrack by ELO was very positively received. It
Because it slaps.
It was a double platinum, which is 2 million copies sold in both Canada and the United States. So 4 million.
Oh, not
between,
combined. Like,
Yeah.
To me
wow.
each.
So
Fuck
it did very well.
Well, dude, that's what I'm saying. Like that. Like this movie cannot be that bad because the music is so fucking good. I mean, like, I would much rather watch a musical with great music and just shit everything else. Like that. The music has to be good. It's a fucking musical. It's not an actical.
Yeah.
You know, it's a fuck like whatever. Like if the acting is amazing and the story's amazing, then the whole thing is a 10 out of 10. But like that's not the focus. I feel like you should be. I don't know. The music is what's important.
Yeah.
And if the music hits this fucking hard, where 4 million people bought an album of this soundtrack, come on, this is not that bad. It can't. It's impossible that it could be.
So, in terms of some other media associated with Xanadu. They did a Marvel Comics adaptation. I actually did read it, sort of getting ready for this review. It pretty much is one-to-one with the movie. And the Wikipedia article sort of said that there are like plot points in the comic that weren't in the movie. After reading it, I don't agree with that. I don't really know where they got that impression.
Oh, you didn't read the chapter where it's revealed that Sonny's the Boston Strangler?
No, I did not.
Yeah, that's a deep cut Easter egg.
That was a big
That's
section.
issue 2, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was okay. Like
Kira whispers into his ear to just fucking do it. She's his inspiration.
And so after that, there was a Broadway musical adaptation in 2007, sort of decades later, and it's a parody of the movie. And sort of because of that, they added like in new plot elements, like there are 2 sister muses that are like evil or something. It's fine. Like it was critically better received, but I think it lacks sort of the heart that the movie has, because it's sort of like making fun of it. Mm-hmm. And again, that's nostalgia, sort of blinding me to that. Yeah.
I respect the movie for embracing what it is.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't do any half measures in its whole fucking atmosphere or vibe that it's going for.
They never, what is it called, lamp shading, where like you point out something is bad and you're like, tee-hee, it's okay that we did this lazy writing because we pointed it out.
Like they set
whereas
the tone.
The Broadway version does that.
Like,
and it's very like tongue-in-cheek, like, I don't know, I don't
you set the tone very early, and I appreciate, like, I can't overstate how much I appreciate them just being like, this is going to be stupid. Like, look at the UFO, look at the neon outlines of the muses getting out of a painting and flying away in particle dust. Like, get over yourself and just enjoy a goofy fucking movie.
Yeah. So, with that, are there any sort of final thoughts that y'all have on this before we wrap things up, or?
Just, it's a wild movie. Like, I would look down at my phone, answer a text or something for a minute, and would immediately be lost. So you need to pay attention, not because of like heavy like plot, serious themes. It's just very off the walls that anything can happen while you're watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I read the article that like Olivia Newton-John died, and I was like, who? And then I was like, oh yeah, Grease and Xanadu lady. I don't really remember those. So it was fun watching Xanadu and being like, okay, that's, she's beautiful and all this stuff, and that's why people are sad. And it's like, okay, I understand that. Greatness comes in 3 names. You got Olivia Newton-John, you got Robert Downey Jr., you got Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, unforgettable.
Jesus Christ.
But no, it's fun seeing her and like how people remember her, and it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, like I've said throughout this, really nostalgic for it. I do recommend watching it. If you're into musicals, obviously, sort of give it a shot. Like, I'm sure you can rent it on YouTube for like probably like $2 or something.
The music's fucking good. So if you like musicals, then you'll like it.
Yeah, at the very least, check out the soundtrack.
Yeah.
On YouTube or Spotify or wherever. But with that, that is going to do it for today's episode of the Boyos Discuss. If you enjoyed the podcast and you're listening on YouTube, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be continuing Boyos Summer Musicals next week with our review of Chicago. Anyways, guys, until next time.
Xanadu can't cry on cue. Now I am here in Xanadu. Here you go, ma'am. I talked to the chef. There's no cream in the soup, just like you asked for. Xanadu.